How are you doing, folks? Welcome back. Today, we're going to address, finally, I guess, one of the questions that keeps coming up. When am I going to do a video on algae? Now, I never had any intention on doing videos on algae. One, I'm not an aquascaper. Two, not really a planted tank guy. Three, I don't care about algae. And four, I spend so much of my time intentionally growing algae as a breeder that it seems counterintuitive for me to tell you how to get rid of it. But the one we're going to look at today seems to be the one that people sort of fear or hate the most, and that's Blackbeard algae. Let's have a look at this tank. So this is the tank. It's pretty bad. It's technically not my tank, even though I paid for the tank, the plants, the wood, all of the very expensive fish in there. It's technically not my tank, but you know how it goes. As soon as something needs fixing or something's gone wrong, oh, but you know best. But to be fair, this Blackbeard algae has been allowed to get this long because I was using it to breed Pseudomogel luminatus in this tank in a non-conventional way, which is fantastic. They have since moved out. Penguin tetras have moved in, and Mrs. Shrimp very much wants this gone. So yeah, okay, now we're going to do it. Now, we're going to look at a few common ways that people will tell you it's in your tank, or why it's in your tank. That makes more sense. What has caused it? And basically how I don't think any of those actually apply, or most of those don't apply to why it's in this tank. Because people say, oh, it's phosphates. Maybe, in your case. Oh, it's low flow. Absolutely not. Don't even. Now, you can quite clearly see that this is well established. It's very long, it's been in there a long time, and it is very, very dense. And that's because I've been leaving it in there intentionally. It has been really, really helpful for me. And you can also see that this is quite clearly red. Rhodophyta is like the family of Blackbeard algae. There are several different species. Normally, it's one that I can't pronounce. It's like Rhodophyta or Udinella. One of those two, forgive me on that. Somebody can spell it out phonetically, that'd be great. And it's very important to understand that red algae are very, very different from green, but we will get onto that. So over and over and over again, you'll be told that it is unstable CO2 levels that cause Blackbeard algae. Now, I'm not having that, mostly because there's no CO2 in this tank. Okay, now I understand how in a tank that uses CO2, inconsistent dosing, maybe the light is coming on too late, and the CO2 is built up lots and then it's being consumed when the light comes on, or perhaps it's the other way around where the light is coming on, there's not enough CO2, then your pump's kicking in and the levels are rising throughout the day, or perhaps you've just got poor diffusion and dispersal around the tank. Cool. In this tank, however, we're looking at epiphytes, Bucophilandra, Java fern, and Anubias. Now, these are not fast-growing, hungry plants. They don't require a lot of CO2, therefore they do not use a lot of CO2. There's also not a huge amount of them. So even when the lights are on, I don't think the CO2 would be dropping that much. And when the lights are off, I don't think it would be going up that much. So that one's out. Another one that I hear thrown around is poor water circulation. Now, in this tank, it's run by a Fluval 307. There is also 100 litres an hour of air pumped into an air stone in the far corner. At the moment, there is even a Shark Pro 700 from Seche running in there on a long form test. It's not to do with low flow, certainly not in this case. In one of the other aquariums, we had Blackbeard algae for a while. It was on the outlet of the FX4. Now on the outlet and in the flow, in high flow situations, it makes a lot of sense. That's where a lot of the nutrients will be directed. It's a guaranteed source of them. So I think poor water circulation, no, I think we can check that one off. Too much light, that gets thrown around a lot. And whilst I think light plays a factor, I mean, if you look at this tank, you can see that it is all on the elevated wood or most of it. There's some down here on this Bucophalandra, but it's all as close to the light as possible. But it's a perfect storm up there. It's getting nutrients directed at it from the outlet of the 307, and it's very, very close to the light. So I think maybe it's a combination of both. High organic waste gets blamed a lot. Now, in this tank, if you didn't do the water changes that are done on this twice a week, 50%, you would have high organic waste. But the nitrates in here are usually 5 parts per million. That is all. It's not tap water, it's remineralized RO, and it's 50% water change twice a week. Now, there are high waste fish in here. We have 2 Pseudohemidon apithanos, there is a Sultan pleco, there are Brochus susi, there's a little breeding colony of L134 leopard frog plecos. There's a lot of high waste fish in there, hence why the water schedule is what it is. So this is certainly not a case of high organic waste. Is the filter dirty? No. Is the substrate full of muck? No, thanks to the rabbit snails that inhabit it, and also the cories that go around churning it up. And then these guys that just keep burrowing themselves. It keeps the substrate relatively clean. Now, over here, we've got some nasty algae coming on the glass, but I mean, it's not an amount of detritus that's built up under the sand. And that's another great reason for using sand and not gravel. Generally keeps all the crap from going inside. Irregular water changes is another one that I've heard quite often. Now that does make sense. If you don't have a regular water schedule like this one does, then yes, your nutrient levels would rise and fall of all nutrients. Whatever's coming out of your tap water, whatever's depleted in the tank, whatever's being produced in the tank, they're going to fluctuate quite a lot. And if you were in that case only running things like epiphytes like we are in this one, apart from this cryptocorn, then yeah, I understand how in high nutrient situations you would have an excess, and in low nutrient situations the plants are going to suffer if you already have algae, because the algae is going to be able to uptake it faster than your epiphytes, than your appetite, than the appetite of the epiphytes. Plant stress is definitely a thing, but it's probably a thing in here now with the leaves being stressed by being covered in so much Blackbeard algae. But there's more to it than that. Now, I don't know about the plants that are in here, the Java ferns and the Anubias and the Bucephalandras, but when plant leaves start to melt, they are obviously an organic property, which is wasting. It's something that the algae can potentially feed on. But a lot of plants do produce allochemical support. So if the plants are suffering, or the leaves are just older, they get less support from the plant in this allelopathy, which are biochemicals that are manufactured and released by the plants to actually inhibit algae growth. Now, there's a lot of plants that can do this. I don't know in particular about the Java fern and the Anubias in here, but things like hornwort, water sprite, vallisneria is actually pretty commonly cited as being able to do that now. So it is interesting that all of these common causes just don't seem to fit this tank. What will we do to get rid of it? Now, there are some organic ways to try and control Blackbeard algae. You will have heard people talk to you about Siamese algae eaters, and they are fantastic if you can get the real Siamese algae eaters. There's a lot of species that look faintly similar. Key things to look for are being able to actually clearly see the identification, the outline of the scales. That will lead you somewhere towards it. But the reason that they will never go in this tank is they can sometimes get a bit aggressive, and there are all the horror stories about slime coat addiction. So basically, they like the taste of your slimier fish. Now, when you've got Pseudohemidon apithanos hiding here trying to be a stick all day, that fish is a damn sight more expensive and more important than a Siamese algae eater or Blackbeard algae. So they're out. Now, Mano shrimp, that's another one that always gets talked about. To deal with this much Blackbeard algae, you would need an absolute army of Amano shrimp. Yes, of course, you could manually remove as much of it as possible, trimming the older leaves off, and that would definitely help. Maybe some Amano shrimp would be good for keeping it in check. Again, as you whiptail keepers know, you don't keep shrimp with these guys. They will eat these. Now at 130, 140 pounds, I'd much rather that these guys, they were happy and safe, and I will kill the Blackbeard algae with chemicals. So how do you deal with Blackbeard algae? Well, yes, it would be nice to understand why it is in your tank, but that could take you a very, very long time to figure out. Now, in other tanks where we've had it with a lot of epiphyte plants, because it doesn't bother me, I leave it alone. Eventually, it sort of works itself out. The epiphytes grow to a point where they outcompete the algae for the nutrients that are available, as long as you keep regular water changes, or if you are dosing fertilizer, keep it regular. Your plants eventually grow and just outcompete the Blackbeard algae. Now, a lack of fertilizer is something we probably should have touched on earlier. If you don't have all of the components that the plants need to grow, algae can quite often use just one of those elements and feast and gorge on that and continue to grow. So there's a bit of unfair competition. So sometimes, although it seems counterintuitive, a nice, normal, organic way to treat this might be just try adding some fertilizers. Then, of course, back to fish, there is the Florida flagfish, which just wouldn't cope in here because it is far too hot. We're talking 28 degrees Celsius in here on most days. Now, the big one, the question everybody always wants to know. How did I get it? It just appeared from nowhere. Well, no, it didn't. You've either got it or you haven't. You may be looking at your tank now and there is no visible Blackbeard algae. That doesn't mean it's not in there. I mean, think of it like seeds. You look at a patch of earth, is there a flower there? No. But in 3 weeks, when the conditions are favorable, there may be a flower there. It's also like Hydra. People do the same thing. Oh, I've got Hydra because I was feeding lots of Norplii, baby brine shrimp. No. You had Hydra to start with. If Hydra is a freshwater polyp, it does not come from products that are saltwater. So it's not that has caused it. It's the fact that you've already got it. It was so small in number or so small in stature because the conditions weren't favorable. You then go and feed a lot of perfect food for it. You know, it's slow, it's alive, it's very protein rich. And then the population explodes. Then you notice it and it seemingly comes out of nowhere. Now, Blackbeard algae, being a red algae, it's introduced into your tank either on decor, plants, substrate, filter media that you've borrowed from somebody to cycle your tank, might actually even just be in the water that you came with your fish. And that is because it is important to understand that this stuff spreads and takes over your tank in 2 ways. It's not cell division like it is with simple green algae. It spreads either through fragmentation or reproductive cells. Now, I'm not saying they're getting it on Barry White style, but think of it similar to a mushroom. So the similar way that mushrooms give off spores into the water, they spread, and then they grow wherever they land. Yeah, red algae can do the same thing. There is an entire circle of life for these. They don't simply exist and divide like simple green algae do. So no, it doesn't just arrive. It came in with some sort of product. It has to. That's just how things work. But being a red algae, it will have a potential for a spore-like stage. Depending on the species, it could be just spores, tetraspores, carpospores, or even monospores. But this is just another way that this is more complicated and I think more impressive than just simple green algae. So the plan for me to get rid of this, there will be some manual removal. Now, the Trident Java fern, which is my favorite Java fern, is already showing signs that it's had enough. it's starting to try to let go of the wood. Now, the leaves are still green and fine under there, but it's almost like, yeah, I'm out of here. This guy's doing my head in. Probably what you're thinking. Just get to us and tell us. It's coming. But so there will be some trimming that will take place, and that will get rid of a lot of it. Now, it's important to turn your filters off when you do that, because fragmentation, you know, one little piece and a microscopic piece will just keep it going. This tank is never likely to be completely rid of it. If you really want to be rid of it, strip the whole tank, let it dry, and then start again. Promise you, that is likely your best bet. However, for me, it will be manual removal, a water change to about here, about 50%, hydrogen peroxide. That sounds scary, I know. And I did recently, I did meet somebody who asked me how much hydrogen peroxide to put in the tank. Don't do that. Don't do that. Hydrogen peroxide is perfectly safe to go into water. I think it even just creates oxygen in certain doses. There's many thousands of pounds worth of fish in here. And even if they were only £1.50, you don't put hydrogen peroxide in the water. Now, saying that, there are some very good use cases for putting hydrogen peroxide straight in the water. Maybe if you've got a bacteria like this guy, Eric Bodrock, the absolute legend, he uses that, and it is a tiny amount. It is a measured amount. It is the same amount every time. The amount you would need to kill this, don't do that. Don't even. So what you do is you remove decor if you can. This can be removed. I'm not going to. I'm simply going to lower the water line and try to direct as much spray of 3% solution onto the Blackbeard algae directly after manual removal. So we're going to remove a lot of that, drop the water, spray it down, leave it 10-15 minutes, fill it back up. Job done. And after that, as a sort of maintenance helper, we will actually use this stuff, Seachem Flourish XL. Now, a lot of you know about this stuff, and a lot of you will be told that you need to get a syringe, turn all your flow off, and then spot it. So just release small amounts around that. Yes, that will work. That's not the easiest way to do it though, is it? No, that's very time consuming. And you can overdose this stuff. So for me, the safest way, drop the water or remove it, 3% hydrogen peroxide solution, fill it back up, or simply place it back in. Then maintain with something like this. I think this is 5 mil or a maximum of 10 mil per 20 litres. So it is possible to overdose. I mean, Seachem actually do say, do not overdose. So again, I still wouldn't go, I mean, if it is a very, very small amount that you've got, like maybe this bit, you could sort of just sort of cluster bomb it with little drops, but no, not for me. This will have a big impact in a week. I'd love to show you right now how to do that, except Amazon Prime is getting more and more not Prime. It's supposed to turn up at some point today, but it was meant to turn up yesterday. So as soon as it arrives, I may look different, maybe a different week, and then I'll show you exactly how I do that. And we're back. Yes, a different day, because Amazon does what Amazon does, and that is not Prime. But it's finally here. Yes, this is the one that I always use. It is a 3% solution. Okay. Now, no, we're not dosing this straight into the water, because why anybody would think that's okay to do is beyond me. So forgive me. It is a different day. It's been a very hot weekend. I'm very tired, and I've still got to get this done. So pump in. We are pumping the water out. It's going to get to about here. And so that you can see the difference, this will be left alone and this will be left alone. But this section is going to have some manual removal, and that will consist of trimming of leaves, just pulling it off, the stuff that isn't really stuck on. Now with the trimming of leaves, you might see me using some kitchen scissors, because somebody definitely didn't borrow the scaping scissors. So yes, that's next stage, and we'll catch up with it when it's drained. Now, I know there are a lot of you out there that don't like large aquariums or even large water changes because they are very, very time consuming. But my advice to you would be use that time to multitask. You could be doing other things on your other tanks. You could be prepping new plants, maybe. You could also even just be cleaning the filter. But what I've gone for is a strawberry gin and lemonade. And I think that's much better. So it's drained about halfway. And just as it was draining, I've been teasing off some of the more loose or longer filaments. And this is what we've got. Now, some of the leaves did come away off the Java fern, but look, there was a lot. So it's handy to have that, and also make sure that you've got a net. Now, I did tell you that what I would do is turn the filter off, and I did that, but I've put it back on because, well, this has taken me 3 takes just. So didn't really want anything to run out of oxygen. Next thing though is going to be, and no, these aren't aquascaping scissors because mine have definitely not been borrowed and not returned. That wouldn't have happened. And you know what? These work fine because I'm pretty confident these were around before aquascaping scissors. Okay, so with the Java ferns, we've got the normal and the trident. There's even Windelov in here somewhere. See these little bits. Oh, there's an Anubias leaf. A bit of the dust. With this, we've removed quite a lot. So I'm very happy that this amount will be taken care of with the hydrogen peroxide. Now over here, I mean, leaves like this, they're not really worth trying to save. And I know, it's an Anubias. We remove 3 leaves. That could be 2 months worth of growth. But that's what we're going to do. And we're going to try to remove them as close to the rhizome as possible. It just looks a little less ugly that way. Now I know people that have, I do know people that have used the little white pads, the little white sponges, the melamine, and they have really tried to scrub leaf by leaf. I'm not a great fan of using melamine pads, and I'm not an eco warrior, but if women had to give up microplastics in their makeup, we really shouldn't be using these, you know, almost single-use sponges that break down into tiny microplastics. I don't know how small it has to be a tiny microplastic, smaller than a normal one, I assume. But yeah, I just don't think it's a great idea in general. So we could get quite drastic with some of this and just remove that head, because then at least we haven't got very bare looking rhizome. Okay, now this bit obviously needs a bit of attention. Yeah, we're going to lose that bit of rhizome as well. Now the rest of that, yeah, I think we coat with the hydrogen peroxide on the rest of that. Now, yes, we discussed earlier some fish that will eat this stuff anyway, but there are also a lot more fish that will find this a little bit more appetizing once it's been treated with hydrogen peroxide. Swordtails, mollies, platies, some tetras, rummy nose tetras used to eat it for me once it had been killed. Wouldn't look at it until it had been killed. I don't know. Not quite sure what that's about. But next step is hydrogen. You could probably actually see that a lot better now because I just realized, even though I thought I'd adjusted the time, the new Flubor app is awful and it hadn't actually saved. So that is actually what we're looking at now that I have changed the time because it is getting on a bit late. Now with the hydrogen, and it is this one that we use, we don't want to add it to the water. We covered that. The best thing to do is remove this, and this could be removed, but 1, it's a pain, and 2, if it's on decor that you can't remove, maybe you've got a 3D background, or maybe it's just on the actual back of the glass, this is how you would need to be doing it. Now what's the tissue for? The tissue is for overspray, okay? So we're going to place that behind where I'm spraying just to try and catch as much of the stuff that isn't hitting the plants as possible. Make sense? Cool. So we're just going to give a good liberal spray, and it really is quite a bit. Okay, and that is it. Now we're going to leave that for 10 to 15 minutes, let the hydrogen peroxide soak in, and we're going to fill it back up. And that's it. 10, 15 minutes for it to do its job, and filter back on, and we are slowly refilling with this. So whilst this refills very, very slowly at this rate, gin, I think. Yes, Nostrovia. No, what we should do is actually discuss next steps going forward, what's going to happen next. So the next 24 hours for this tank, nothing at all other than potentially a very, very light feeding. Now, unless you've got some real outside case, your fish are going to be fine going 24 hours without any food at all. And why would we want to do that? Or at least limit the food? Well, this area all the way around, plus the top of that filter, a lot of this wood and those leaves, they have been exposed to the air. Now, we know our beneficial bacteria, which was living on all of those surfaces until we drained it, does not like to be exposed to air. Now, I'm not saying that 15 minutes outside of water has absolutely decimated the population, but it has likely had an effect. Maybe some of the older, less healthy bacteria has, slotted. But also a lot of it was in direct contact with hydrogen peroxide. Now, that is very, very good at killing beneficial bacteria. So 24 hours. What we're going to do is limit the amount of ammonia that could be produced, and therefore really, really limit the possibility of having an ammonia issue, like a mini cycle. After 24 hours, because of this water being exposed to air, highly aerated, it is very, very unlikely that any of the hydrogen peroxide exists in that system at all. Now, if it was in a dark condition and it was in a sealed container, that hydrogen peroxide could stay around in the water for a very long time, days, even weeks, because that's how chemistry works. But with this, 24 hours and we'll be fine. It may even be completely non-toxic because of the small amount that went in there in the next 2 hours, but 24-hour window just to be sure. Now, after that, we are going to start dosing with Satis. Now, this is beneficial bacteria from NT Labs. It is fantastic. I highly recommend it. Do you need to do this? No. Have I ever done it in the past? No. But I have it. I do not need it elsewhere, so I'm going to use it. It cannot hurt. When used at the recommended doses, it cannot hurt. Okay? Then, after 48 hours, the sort of maintenance step will start to take over. And that is where Flourish XL is going to come into effect. Now, why am I waiting 48 hours for this? Because I am not a chemist. I do not know that this added to this will not have an adverse reaction. There could be something in this that really, really does not play nicely when mixed with hydrogen peroxide. So it's better to not do that at all. So we're not going to. But after 48 hours, we will start dosing this as recommended by CChem. Also, we've got some extra fish. Now, they won't be going in yet because even though I trust our local fish store, everything has to go through quarantine when it's going in with these expensive guys. Now, what we've got in here are two beautiful panda garras because, well, why not? They're awesome fish. And they may not eat black hair algae or blackbeard algae in that form, but they may be one of the fish that eat it when it's been treated with hydrogen peroxide. And even if they don't, when you eradicate an algae, quite often a different one will start to appear. Now, these guys are very, very good at polishing Anubias leaves, polishing glass, and even polishing wood. Plus, Mr. Shrimp really likes them. Now, because we were there, and they had some more beautiful penguin tetras, well, we picked up another 5 because I don't know how many there are. 16? Maybe? I don't know. It's not my tank. More is always better with penguin tetras, much like rummy nose tetras, in my opinion. So that is the rough plan going forwards. You don't need to wait for this to completely refill. I will get some shots of how this looks when it's refilled tomorrow and the next day, when we should be seeing this BBA go in a light pink rather than that dark rusty red that it had previously. So yeah, I'll see you then. You can already start seeing the signs of the hydrogen peroxide working. This area was not treated. All of this dark red is the BBA untreated. Now if we just hop over here, look how much brighter that is already becoming. All of the affected area is becoming very red, starting to turn a slight pinkish. So by tomorrow or the next day, yeah, this will pretty much have it. Well, as we can see, after just 48 hours, it is clearing up beautifully. Now, the fish are not being fed because we're trying to encourage anything that will to nibble on the dying hair algae. And you can see the non-treated area is pretty much as bad as it was, but it's looking good so far. Well, we're going to have to end this video somewhere because this is going to take 2, maybe 3 weeks to clear up properly. And if I try and leave it to then, I will forget that this video even exists and it will never get out. But I started at the beginning of this video saying why I don't think each of the commonly spouted reasons for BBA existing was necessarily the reason for this. So what do I think? Well, I think it was a combination of 3 things. Obviously, the light. It's by a window, it gets light all the time, and then it gets very intense light on these plants that are at the top. Add to that the L134s, the leopard frog plecos, were being conditioned for breeding. What that means is they were being very, very heavily fed bloodworm, and all of the water changes that were being done very regularly were pure RODI water. No remineralization, no cutting in tap water, so almost no minerals were left in this tank after a period of 10 to 14 days of conditioning. Other than the things that bloodworm bring in. Now, frozen bloodworm, as with all worms, but bloodworm is really up there, second only, I think, to blackworm, is a big producer of phosphates. So potentially, I mean, if you look at the leaves on some of this Anubias, it's very yellow. That's not a light deficiency, that is usually a nitrogen, a nitrate deficiency. So that shows you that there hasn't been a complete menu of nutrients for the plants to feed on, but there has been definitely enough, probably phosphates or maybe potassium, for the algae to survive. The amount of water changes that were being done, there was never going to be any nitrates in there. So I think it's mostly just a combination of those 3, and the fact that I let it go a lot further than you normally would because the Pseudomogor luminatus were actually breeding in it. They were laying their eggs amongst because it was very long. Well, they won't do it when it's short, but because it was very long and wavy, they were actually laying their eggs in it. And it was really, really interesting to see, because even in that flow, before the tetras were in here, you could remove the parents, and then after 10 to 15 days, you would start seeing fry. Now, because the flow was far too strong, they were never going to survive. But I just wanted to see what the parents would prefer. Would they go for Java fern, Blackbeard algae, Anubias, or Bucephalandra? And it was the algae, which was surprising. Now, if I wanted to, I could easily have just trimmed it, taken it out, and hatched them in a different container, but we've got too many of them anyway. So yeah, that is how I would always tackle Blackbeard algae. Yes, ideally you want to get to the root cause of it. If it's a big issue for you, it doesn't really matter to me. What we will do now is that now that the Seachem XL is being used, we'll give that a little while, and then we will just start doing normal water changes for us, which is 50% RODI and 50% tap, which normally brings us out at a TDS of about 113, which most of the tanks run on quite happily here, and they have Anubias and other epiphytes in. So I hope that's been some sort of help for you. If nothing else, at least you've seen that hydrogen peroxide can be used, a specific one. You've seen it. You're not a moron. You don't need that put in the description. Oh, put the link in the description. Type. That winds me up. So lazy. But yeah, I hope that's some use to you. But that is genuinely why I believe we had Blackbeard Algae come on so strong. Yes, if I dealt with it sooner, it would never have got to that, but I was enjoying it. That's probably the only algae video you're ever going to get from me, because I spent so long, honestly, trying to grow algae. I don't understand what everybody's issue with it is. But then you're not trying to breed algae eating fish, you. So yeah, maybe. But anyway, on that note, I hope everybody finds a reason to smile and make a stranger smile as soon as you can. And we'll see you in the next one.